Good evening and a very warm welcome to this edition of The Big Debate. I'm your host, Igoma Gabriel, and we're coming to you live from our studios on Naguru 2 Road here in Ntinda. Today, The Big Debate will look at an issue that has sent waves of sadness through Ugandans, quite similar to what happened in April of 2008 when Ugandans were gripped with sadness after hearing that 19 pupils of Budo Junior School had lost their lives in a fire. For the first time in a long time, many Ugandans called for action to make Ugandan children safe while at school. Not because there hadn't been fires before, but because of the magnitude and the number of lives that were lost in that fire. Commitments were made and guidelines were put in place to ensure that something like this did not happen again. A few days ago, these memories came back to light with a fire that ended up taking the lives of 11 pupils in a school in Mukono. Even making the situation worse, this was a school for the blind, which begs the question, what can be done to ensure safety of Ugandan learners? I'm your host, Igoma Gabriel, and this is The Big Debate. Let's meet our panelists.
Our panel tonight, Mr. Damon Wamara, is the Executive Director of Uganda Child Rights NGO Network, a coalition of child-focused organizations including community-based national and international organizations working for the welfare and the rights of children in Uganda. Mr. Wamara also sits on the National Task Force on the Prevention of Trafficking in Persons, a member of the Advisory Board of Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons, Uganda, which is a coalition of more than 30 civil society organizations working around preventing and curbing human trafficking. Damon has received numerous awards like the Diamond Ambassador Award from Uganda Martyrs University, the recipient of the U.S. Department of Labor 2020 Iqbal Masih Award on elimination of worst forms of child labor, and a nominee of the 2020 European Union Human Rights Award for his work in child rights. Silas Agon is a Ugandan politician, accountant who serves as Member of Parliament of Kumi Municipality, Kumi District. Silas Agon is also a member of the Committee on Education and Sports in the 11th Parliament. Honorable Agon has served in both the 10th and 11th Parliament of Uganda as an independent politician and is remembered for standing up against government as one of the 4 MPs from Teso sub-region who vowed to go on strike if government failed to evenly distribute food during the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. Agon is an accountant by profession and has served as a member of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, Committee on Natural Resources, WOPA as an associate member, and a member of the Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection. Ladies and gentlemen, our panel tonight.
There you are. Those are our panelists. And for some reason today, the introduction of our panelists has kind of made me think about, asking each of you a question in relation to something that was in your intro, in your bio. And Honorable Silas, I will begin with you. You are an economist. How is the economy doing in your view? Very briefly, because these have been biting times.
I think now we've reached a level where everybody is speaking about the economy in their own language. The Tesos are speaking about the economy in their Teso language. Those in the Kampala, the Baganda are speaking about the economy in the Buganda language. So that is the level. But I remember when the Honorable Kasaija one time saying that the economy is about to take off. But it seems the economy is about to, it is at a landing mode. Yeah. But basically, things are not easy out there. Of course, I've seen when it comes to issues of, for instance, the fuel prices, it's like they're trying to calm down a little. But still, when it comes to other commodities, talk about sugar, talk about posho. That is the most basic food. Posho, rice. The price has gone up to the ceiling. So I don't know what we are going to do, but I know we have prayer warriors in Uganda. Let us go for that prayer and fasting.
We are leaving it to prayer and fasting.
Yes, for now.
For now.
For
All
now.
right. Of course, I would have asked many things, but that's not our topic for today. Diamond, if I may come to you, something that has been in the news, the issue of human trafficking. Yes, you're an advocate for, curbing human trafficking, making sure that especially our young people are not trafficked. The situation as it is right now, because I know there are conversations around that, and we really need to take some steps as a country.
Gabriel, the situation is still very dire, and we'll need another whole show for us to discuss that whole conversation about trafficking in persons. But as a country, we are not performing very well. Of course, in terms of measurement at international standards, we are doing better than we were doing before, but we're still not doing well. And we're still at international standards, according to the US Department of State, we are still at tier 2. We need to get to tier 1. Tier 1 means that the country has done everything and we are satisfied that our laws, our principles, our policies, justice is being served. The whole process is flowing. And even though the crime exists, but the measures are flowing, everything is serviced and everything is functioning, the system is functioning. And currently we are not yet at that system. And the situation is there because despite people seeing the videos of people stuck in Saudi Arabia and all these other countries, statistics actually show us that domestic trafficking is worse than the cross-border trafficking.
All right. Well, also with that, something that we probably will discuss in the future, not our topic for today. No. And now, if I may bring you in to the topic of today, I probably am avoiding it because of, the feelings of sadness around, losing 11 young people in a place where they should be safe, school. Let me just start with your initial thoughts on that particular incident and then what it means, about our preparedness. I will start with you, Honorable.
I think really, first of all, allow me to send my sympathies to the families. We have as a nation lost so dearly, and it is something that is so heartbreaking to lose 11 of your own citizens to a fire. And when you read the Bible and you talk about hell, I just imagine, is a big fire. And then now we bring some sort of hell into our institutions of learning. I think it is a high time that this country wakes up and takes some serious action. We should now stop just having boardroom meetings, making recommendations, and keeping them in the cabinets. It is time for us to act. It is a sad moment. It is not good. It is bad. And I really feel for the families. We are with you. And please, we pray with you that God gives you the strength so that you overcome such a big moment. And we want to applaud the TV station here for having given us an opportunity to feel together with the people who have lost. It is a big moment for us that we must really stay with those families together. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wamara. Your initial thoughts.
I stand also with Honorable, and I totally agree with Honorable. First of all, we stand with the families for the that have lost their children. I sit here and I know the three of us are fathers, and I think it's not wrong for you to have only brought fathers to discuss this. As fathers, we need to take charge of the situation and also have our voice clearly brought out. It's very sad, and like you have said, to add salt to the wound, it is children with a disability that have been greatly affected. For me, it raises questions around, are we doing enough to ensure that wherever our children are, it is a safe place? where all the systems again working in there. You talked about the economy and how it is biting. What is the result? Did the economy also have a contribution to this? Did they cut corners because the economy was tight and they didn't have? Where were the fire extinguishers in the vicinity? Were the children trained, and did the personnel there, did the security? You can see what is running through my head. Did they know what to do? Were they trained enough to respond? Were the safeguarding measures in the school adequate to ensure that the children were safe and that that the facility was able to respond? Did the children know where to run to? And the mere fact that they're with disabilities, some are blind, some are deaf, some can't walk well, how were they able to move through? Did they even help them engage in all that? And for me, that's what is running through my head. It's a very sad moment for us in the nation to lose. One child is too much. One child is too much for us to lose, and especially a child who lives with a disability.
Well, you just mentioned, were they trained? The first time I saw, people doing a fire drill here in Uganda, it was such a shocker, not just to me, but to people who were in the vicinity, because, people running out of a building, a siren is going off, but nothing is actually happening. There's no fire. And yet, this is common elsewhere, where you have to, prepare and train people on, if there is a fire, this is how you exit. Is this something that any institution of learning, local, that you know about, that actually does this?
These are all the very interesting questions to ask, and it would be good to do a study to find out what are the safety measures we have in place. And that's why I'm talking about safeguarding. Safeguarding is looking at what the situation is. Do the children know where to respond to if they are abused, if they are at risk, if something happens, what happens? What are the measures put in place to ensure that they mitigate? You may not address everything, but you mitigate. So if the fire extinguishers were there, if they have been trained to move and all that. In my own experience, I have been in places, I don't know where you work nowadays, because it also depends where you work. I don't know if Parliament have even had a fire drill before, but I have been in some of my former workplaces and in my former school. I went to Uganda, St. Lawrence Citizens, and there were times we had fire drills, and they would make you get out of class and run. It was a time when there was a heavy inspection. I think that's when Ministry of Education was pushing for fire extinguishers in all the dormitories and all that. But ask me if it happened again, I don't remember. I don't remember if my son has even told me that they've had a fire drill in primary or anything. And sometimes it's because they think these children are too young to understand. They think the children with disabilities do not understand. But they'll be surprised at how much they can understand. They'll be surprised at how fast they'll be able to respond and know what they're supposed to do. The children nowadays are not as young and naive as we want them or think they are.
All right. Well, Honorable, as a legislator and of course a national leader, when something like this happens, what springs up for you?
Yeah, first of all, I know that as a house, as parliament, we have 4 key roles. There are issues of legislation, oversight, appropriation, but also representation. And when I play my mind around that, you really see that there are issues that we must attend to. For instance, one, at the beginning of this show, you did highlight an issue. In 2008 or so, we had a similar kind of happening. And that situation was around, I think, Budo.
Yes.
Yes.
Budo Junior School.
Yes, claiming a bigger number than this. So, in terms of oversight, what is it that we have been able to do as a country, as a parliament, asking questions? And when parliament asks questions, has the government responded and responded positively to the questions raised by Parliament. I say so because I've been looking through the work of Parliament, and you find there are members who have always raised questions around issues of fire. I think even as we talk right now, in the business to follow of Parliament, there is something that a member raised on the fires in schools. So my question is, how far does government go in implementing recommendations of Parliament around the issues of fire? This is something very, very critical for us to follow up. It is very, very important. And I think we'll now need to drag the office of the Prime Minister, because that's the leader of government business, to this very big issue, so that they give us the bigger action picture around what they are going to do about the situation, because the situation is getting out of hand. As we wait 3 months, you hear. After 2 months, you hear. Fire is like it will never happen, but I have seen it happens. We need to drag it to the level of aviation. I think aviation is the most, I don't know how to call it, but in terms of regulation, in terms of protocols, procedures, the safety measures in aviation, an aeroplane will not take off before people have been taken through the safety measures.
And it doesn't matter that
it doesn't
you're a frequent
matter.
flyer. They will tell you.
And they will always emphasize that
yes.
point, that it doesn't matter. You might have flown just this morning. Maybe they told you from Abu Dhabi, please listen to us. We are going to remind you again. In the event of the unlikely happening, this is what you are going to follow. Follow the lights, listen to the crew, do this, do not carry any luggage. But if we ask how many of such procedures have been conducted in our schools, in our institutions, in our public places, because that should be the normal way of doing things. We may not be able to do it on a daily basis, but have we done it even on a weekly basis? Because I know, for instance, when you talk about the schools, they gather for assemblies at least maybe once in a week. Is this part of the training? Is this part of the awareness that is created? Because there should be a master plan for you to always come and say, please, as we start this week, remember about fires. In the unlikely event that it happens, this is what you are going to follow. Go to the schools around Kampala and then you ask. You check whether you will see a point where they say fire assembly, fire point. At least hotels have tried. When you go to the big hotels, they will show. But even in the hotels, there are some hotels up to now where there are no places of preparedness for fire. I can tell you that is true. Then how many of these institutions have gone even to test their fire extinguishers, whether they are working? Because I want to believe they should also be serviced. How many people know how to use them? How many? But when we talk about the structures, the buildings, the hostels, the dormitories, the way they have been constructed, I think as a committee on education, we need to go down. We want to pick some evidences. We need to check, for instance, where this thing happened, what kind of dormitory was it? And those reports must be made public so that we take up a decision based on information. Yeah, for me, I think that is very, very important. You find people struggling with the burglar proofing. You want to make a burglar-proofed what? Dormitory. In the event of fire, people are struggling to exit. Everywhere is about metals. What is the police talking about this? What are the standard measures? Safety. For me, those are the issues. And the schools fenced. Parliament needs to go down and check. If we need such measures to be implemented, how much money does it need? So that as a house, we appropriate. That should be the way, because now it is becoming hell on earth. We cannot afford to wait. And when you look at the issues of awareness, churches, in my opinion, play a big role in creating awareness. But you rarely hear this from the churches. Who is helping to bring the churches on board? That is an issue. When you look at cultural institutions, you rarely and hardly hear from a cultural leader issues of fire. But fire and fire cases and disasters have become real. So to me, as Parliament, I think when we reconvene, we are going to raise these questions again and put government under maximum pressure. First of all the reports around the fire happenings must be brought to the fore of the country. We must all discuss this. What were the findings? What were the recommendations? Were they implemented or not? Did we need to appropriate money? The 2023-2024 budget must cater for this, if at all we're talking about appropriating money. Then if there's a problem in terms of the legislation, let us open up the law books. Where is the problem? If the problem is about policy, where are the gaps? We must fix those gaps. So we want to, and then the oversight function must be increased. Ministry of Education needs to get up, working, running, and checking. We should not wait until the children are in a fire, then we run there. It should be a routine issue. We appoint officers directly responsible for safety in terms of fire. And I think if we do that as a country, it will signal that we are serious. Lastly, I want to believe around the world and in Africa, East Africa, there are countries that have done well in fire safety issues. We need to benchmark. What have other countries done? So that we borrow from them. What is it that they have done well that we can be able to replicate here? I think that will be a good one. I think really we must stand with these families. For now, government should do some, get some support and give to those families.
All right.
That is very important.
On standing with the families, I will come back to you. But if I may just hear from Mr. Wara, in relation to, have we diagnosed the problem well? Because without doing that, we're going to prescribe solutions that may not work in our case.
Well, Gabriel, the civil society working together with the Ministry of both Education and Gender have been running a very big campaign, and I think you've heard of it, on ending violence against children in all settings. And together with the members of Parliament in 2016, we managed to get the amendment of the Children's Act,
yes,
which also emphasized the banning of corporal punishment. And all those were geared to ensuring that the places, the safety of children in places of schools and everywhere else. That was just the mentality behind it. And just last year we had a diagnosis of safe to learn under the violence against children. Then the Ministry of Education still also went ahead to say that along this, for us as Minister of Education, we are committing to ensuring that all our institutions are safe to learn environments. So the Ministry of Education is committed to that. They are committed to it, and they did do a diagnosis together with the Global Partnership on Safe to Learn, which is by UNICEF and World Health Organization and a few other organizations, including also our government through Ministry of Education. The Safe to Learn brought out and said, in terms of our legislation, we are good. Uganda is good to go, so congratulations, Honorable. Legislation, we are doing well. In terms of policies, we have them. In terms of guidelines, administrative guidelines from Ministry of Education, we have them. We have them. The guideline is there of how a dormitory should be. A guideline is there of how the bed spacing should be, of how many doors should be, of the marking of the doors. All those guidelines are there. They're clearly available and are provided for by Ministry of Education. They're provided for. I haven't said that they've been disseminated. That's something different. And there is having the law, the legislation, and the policies, but the ability to take them further. But that's the diagnosis showed that apart from that, even Ministry of Education went further ahead on some of the policies and the laws, and even translated these into local dialect, which is a positive. which means that they tried their level best to ensure that it was translated in Luganda. I think there's Lugbara, there is also Lusoga, and I think Runyankole, and a few other dialects that were translated, which is a good sign as a country in terms of our progress. And that progress shows that Uganda, through the Ministry of Education, we're making steps that are making the steps to ensure that there's a safe plan. And we are going to get into a conversation about this safety of children, safe to learn spaces. Are children free from violence against themselves? Is there a violent-free school? Are we ensuring that the environment is conducive enough for them to grow? I'm hearing Honorable talking about structures and ensuring money is there, but let's talk about the village schools.
Yes.
I was in Karamoja, I worked with dwelling places, and I did work in there are some of the schools that are made out of what? Grass. And if a fire catches that one now, which fire extinguisher is going to go there? The structures are not even there that we're talking about. The children are being burnt by the sun. And there the fire is not even because of an electric wire or what. It is the sun fire that you cannot avoid. And, these are the harsh realities that we are saying, and that diagnosis was, look, there are some things that the policies are good, they're giving clear guidance for, but there is something lacking. And that diagnosis, brought out and showed that the big gap in our ensuring that there's safety in schools is the lack of funding. And Gabriel, you remember recently Ugandans woke up to news breaking in the newspaper that the government had only allocated 35% of the budget to the schools. So if it is being cut, and with the cuts, where you jokingly brought up the economy conversation earlier on, but the economy is coming into the schools. It's the effect of the economy is draining into the schools, because what is the first place government is going to cut expenses? It's going to be the children. Unfortunately, we are seeing that the children suffer the first. The education budget cut, the gender budget cut. So what's going to happen? Shortcuts are going to come in. Is then Ministry of Education going to be able to go and do their role of monitoring? If they don't have budgets, if they don't have salaries, if they don't have DEOs in the school, in the districts, if the school inspectors are not funded well enough, there are some upcountry schools where the school inspectors only will give a phone call and say, hello, are you at school? Okay, thank you. Hey, the role is not even being carried out. So for the Mirembe, this is a school with persons with disabilities. But many questions would come to mind for any person who is, I think, in honorable's position. And many of us as child rights workers were asking, but the ratio that is guided by the Ministry of Education on children who carers in the school, especially for children with disabilities, it's higher than with children without disabilities because of the fact that they have
unique needs that they have.
Was it matching? If it was matching, was it overwhelming? Those are the questions you're asking that need to be answered. But in terms of diagnosing, giving a diagnosis at a national level, together with World Health Organization, UNICEF, and a few other partners, have actually done a diagnosis of safe to learn. And it has brought out some data. We're going to have more of those conversations next week. But I'll tell you, the issue for me, the biggest issue that we have is that we have the good policies, we have the good systems, but we don't have funding for the systems. So if you don't fund them, then they not function. Yeah. They're non-functioning systems.
All right. In different spaces, they refer to that as, failing on the implementation.
And the saddest thing is that what we do, although in even the saddest situation we're in, Uganda is still one of the best examples. It's the saddest conversation.
Because you have the policies in place, you have the, you have the guidelines as well.
Those guidelines and policies, and they're then taken and used in other countries. So, and then the other countries fund them, and they become successful, and then they beat us. Yet we are the ones who started it. Where did we go wrong? As teacher Mpamire would do it.
Well, Honorable, the issue of implementation does come up, right? But, you know, as we speak, somebody may wonder, and Damon did bring it up a bit in, you know, the submission he just made. Some of the schools are grappling with, you know, the most basic problems. And, you know, we're here talking about, you know, the requirements and the rules be followed. You know, the dormitory not have should have, you know, the number of exits. You know, this spacing between the beds and what have you. We're giving these for schools where, you know, there's probably one dormitory for, you know, almost all the classes. You know, lucky to actually have rated, you know, dormitories for the young and the older children.
They are crowded.
Yes, and they're even struggling with the classrooms themselves. You know, we're talking about issues of ratio of, you know, caregivers or teachers to the students, and that is a problem. Even the ones who are supposed to teach. Enough, then we're talking about the ones who are supposed to do supportive roles. Are we, you know, are we asking too much of the schools?
I think we are not asking too much. By the time you go to that sector, you must be ready. Because just imagine what has happened, losing 11 children at a go in a single fire. We are not asking too much. But I think the only thing is that, like my brother did point out, we need to fund the ministry well. We need to go down and monitor what is happening so that the implementation is improved. We have seen an issue of the private versus the public. The private schools are there. There is also corruption in Uganda. Somebody will tell you today we are coming to check your school. But I don't know that they agree on certain ways of doing things. That is also a possibility. If a classroom is supposed to have, they will have 200 and about it, the reports will point to a clean kind of thing. Everything is okay. But in reality, when you're there, is it true? Those are some of the questions. So I think Uganda reached a certain level. These fires now and those deaths, we must wake up, and starting with the action from Parliament. Our committee needs to go out. We need to ask our Speaker, she's a good Speaker of Parliament, give us resources. We need to reach out again. We need to see what is happening. Then when we come, we're able to push from a very informed point of view. Because things are not, we're not asking too much. The schools must provide. If you become somebody who is a businessman in the sector of education, you must be ready. Do the standards the way you have been guided. The guidelines are there. If the policies are there, why are you not fulfilling? If you look at the amount of money that is institutions charge, we've been grappling a lot of money from schools. They put in that development fee, feeding money, PTA, meeting money just for meetings. Construction. It's a private school, moreover. Private. But somebody is asking for cement. Why should this be? So we are not asking for more. We are not asking for so much. No. And when it comes to government institutions, it is a constitutional requirement. It is a right. So that one, government has just to really implement it. But we must go hard on the private schools. They must adhere. That must happen.
All right.
So that we move forward.
There's a way in which we address such issues, and I don't know if it really helps with them. We probably are going to hear very soon that there's a package that has been given to the families of 11, and then, yeah, after that, silence. Is this an efficient way of dealing with issues?
It is not, of course. This is like massaging a problem. Of course, it's not bad to give a handout. That is a dose just to support for something which is just for like the immediate. But for long term, we need something sustainable. First of all, for me, my concern is prevention. What is it that the government is injecting in the budget towards preventing what? More fires. That should be the thing. So we must go towards that. And I'm happy that civil society has a lot of information, a lot of research done, a lot of evidences. There should be no competition. The way people are trying to put it, like civil society is there to fight what? Government. Civil society is there to give a complementary kind of input so that government works better, efficiently. So what is it that a civil society can bring on the table? And government brings the other part. And we complete the game. For me, that is the question. All that there is research which is already done. Figures are already there. It's a duty of government to fund so that we implement what we have agreed. And then you see situations normalize. So I think we are just going to open up the house. We've been on a recess. We need to ask big questions as quickly as possible. And all the reports that we have had around fires must be displayed to see what were the findings, what were the recommendations, who is staying with these reports, why are we not moving, why are we still having fires killing children in those numbers, even after we learned lessons before in the Budos and beyond. Those are big questions. It shows that the future is not secured. So we must secure our future.
The questions Honorable Silas raises just now are questions that have been asked before. They are questions that come up when we have a tragedy of this nature. And soon after those questions have been asked, answers are not given, we go back into slumber. Kind of waiting for the next incident to ask the same questions, because questions around the reports, for example, for a long time Parliament for the report of the fire in Budo. You know, yes, and
it's still on the way. It's somewhere around.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't if that report finally came, but as you know, if my memory serves me right, yes, still waiting.
It's around
still waiting for that one. But you know, how do we ensure that we don't go back into that tomorrow? Because yes, Parliament will ask tough questions. I don't even know who Parliament asks those questions to.
We shall ask the Prime Minister.
Oh, the Prime Minister.
See, the Prime Minister is the leader of government business. The Prime Minister knows the ministers responsible for that. And they will have to ask. He should direct the questions to the relevant minister if they are there.
You're
but
not going to ask the minister.
Yes, but the government is there. Government is led by the leader of government.
Well, Parliament.
Yes.
Parliament is having an issue with, you know, asking questions to the Minister of Education. But yes, how do you ensure that, you know, we don't?
First of all, I do know that this conversation, and it is going to definitely be raised. As you talk about safe to learn, and then we are talking about giving eulogy to the that have passed away. That already raises a question of how we're doing enough as a country.
All right. Just to understand, that conversation will happen, but outside of Parliament, right? Outside
of Parliament, with Ministry of Education, with the First Lady, who is a Minister of Education, with key stakeholders generally, both international, local.
Yes.
But I want to, first of all, because you know we're civil society, and when for us we're looking at situations, like Honorable said, we don't want to look at situations only in one direction. Now, it's one thing for, what does government usually say? Their role, the ministry said their role is to create an enabling
environment. Yes.
But it is us, the citizens, to actualize the enabling environment. So for me, the key question, and first of all, the problem I have is that if you look at our statistics, we have handed over the education sector to the private sector.
And the private sector is profit-driven.
That's the first problem we have. Yeah. That's the first problem.
And so where you can reduce cost, you reduce cost to maximize profit.
That's exactly. And the economy is becoming tight. They have to get more money for fuel. They're going to cut costs.
No, I've seen in schools now what they do. if they see that the food is not going to be enough, and they are left with 11 days, they send the children home. Yes, because that is the quickest exit.
And they're sending them where there's also no salary. Yes.
And the parents are saying, may they delay it, because they also don't have.
But still going back to the conversation, for me is the fact that we are looking at government and we are looking at parliament, and we have discussed these. And the truth is, they will have a limit where they go. Right. But who are the people on ground? Who are the people on ground, Gabriel?
In the schools, they're definitely administrators, the duty bearers.
And the parents. Let's not forget also the parents. Ask the parents. We have the PTA. We have the Board of Governors. Remember when we ran to Parliament and said, please, school fees, don't allow school fees to go up. Ministry of Education came and advised them and said, you know, we cannot give an ultimatum that this is the amount. But we have created a structure and we have said the boards should be the ones to decide. You remember that conversation?
Yes.
Where they were now shifting the power to the boards, and the boards have that enabling engagement where they are supposed to hold the things accountable. And on the board, remember, there has to be a representative of parent. The ministry also gave guidelines of what should make up a board of a school. And there has a representative of the parent. There is all these key people who should come on. The parents who are in the schools, we cannot entirely dump our kids at school and move away. Gabriel, I'm so heartbroken. Nowadays, Honorable, I don't know why we're even allowing people to take children who are in baby class 3 years old to a boarding facility. To a boarding facility, 3 years old. What has happened to us as Ugandans? Where are we shifting this problem?
Right.
I even feel like crying when I think about it.
I looked at one of the things to me. The first report that came out put the ages of the children that had died between 4 and I believe 13 years. The reports I saw that put the youngest at probably 7. But, you know, I cannot say for a fact that the one that said there was a 4-year-old was inaccurate, which really goes to, you know, what are children that young?
What are children that young?
But Ministry of Education has pronounced itself on this issue.
That is one bit. But you see, because if they don't have the money to go and to monitor and hold accountable, and also the corruption is there. We cannot deny that there's corruption. And the school inspectors are bribed and all those things happen. That is there. But for me, I get annoyed with the fact that a parent hands over their 3-year-old. Now, the economy again is biting. The situation is the economy is biting. And the parent has to go and look for a job in Dubai. Now, you see how UAE trafficking becomes an issue. All these things are interlinked, they're connected. You know, they're wires just connecting each other. The economy to the children, and the children at the end. You know what they said? When the elephants are fighting, it's the grass that suffers. When the economy is struggling and the parents are fighting on how to survive, who is going to suffer? The children. The children who are being put in the cheapest schools that will easily allow. The children, I had a school where I sat in a meeting, a parents' meeting with the school, and I said, Father put up there, I've come to pick, I have a problem. I have picked my daughter up, but I was disappointed when I reached home. My daughter had no panty. How? I was like, that's bad. How P3 not having a panty? Then they said, which class? Nursery. I said, Jesus Christ. How do you complain to the teacher that my daughter did not come home with a panty? When did we shift that responsibility there? We as parents also have a key role. We as communities have a key role. Remember that the Local Government Act gives responsibilities also to the vice chairperson of every local government to be the chairperson of the children's committee. So what does that mean? They actually have a role to monitor anything that has to do with the well-being of the child.
But they ask you for monitoring reports and you see whether there's any.
But how can they write any report when they don't know how to write a report?
Bas. So, and today, I had an opportunity to interface with an expert from Ministry of Education, and she did point out one issue. That for us in Uganda today, parents send children to school. They don't take children to school. And she did highlight that there's a difference between the two. sending to school and taking a child to school. You just say, go. You don't care whatever happens. People want to be fed. They want everything to be done by government. And yet, each of us has something to do.
Yeah.
And beginning with the parents.
Yeah.
Beginning with the parents have the bigger role to play.
Yeah.
But people have decided now to give it to, these are government children. It's worse when they say that UPE. They think now when it's UPE, it is for government. And therefore they send children to school. They don't take children to school.
Can you imagine?
We must be able to go with them, go with the children. It means you take responsibility for all the things that you have talked about.
Yeah.
Buy a panty for the child, buy a book for the child, do this, but you just send and you leave it there. So that is how far we have gone now.
Gabriel, can you imagine if parents sat, discussed, are not satisfied with schools provision, and then they come and seek audience with a member of parliament on the Committee of Education and raise a concern with them, with the DEO, I don't know. Tell me that if the MP would go up and not, because I have worked with MPs, I have presented issues with the MPs on the floor of parliament concerning children, and them the facts and the information, and it is backed with real factual evidence. Go to the floor of parliament and engage. Even Minister of Education, I do know for sure the moment issues are raised with the gender, they even, Minister of Education even went, apart from having just Minister of Education, they even formed a gender department. The gender department is supposed to now come and give advice. The other ones are educationists. Now this gender department comes to give advice as children, as a child expert, and say that, look, when it comes to child protection, ensuring the safety of children, this is how you're supposed to go. You see, so they receive all those complaints. There's a complaints department in Ministry of Gender. Who will bring the complaints? Is it going to be the schools to bring complaints about themselves?
No, they cannot bring
it's
complaints
us,
about
the parents.
themselves. Yeah.
We need to go back and be engaged in our schools. What materials are, what is being taught to our schools, our children in schools? Who is picking our children from school to take them wherever they're going? Where are they going? Which bus are they going? Why is there my child on that bus and that bus is engaged in I caught it on video? Did the parents, all these questions, parents need to take charge. These are our children. I know government says, according to the constitution, that all children belong to the government, but then these are our children. They are our responsibilities. The biggest problem is that we are quick to blame government and we are slow to look at what we have done as parents to ensure that we also play our role and hold it accountable and say, we have done our part, but you have failed to do yours.
In an instance where, yes, the guidelines are clear on what the school is supposed to do, what exactly should the parents be doing? Because parents also know, that's the school. If I start going around and asking, now where are the extinguishers? They say, okay, no, we can put the extinguishers, but you will have to pay an extra this or an extra that.
So, for me, this is where, again, an honorable said this, we cannot accept compromise. We cannot accept standards, substandard services. When we as civil society, as Uganda Child Rights, when we're evaluating the education in Uganda, we don't just look at has a child had any education.
Right.
We look at quality of education. And the reason why the heavy conversations around the kind of education, the change of curriculum, was not because of anything, but the quality of education. And the whole thought assuring that we don't continue thinking in the same bracket. Likewise, as civil society, we have learned that we cannot fight in these things alone. We cannot engage on, we will not end violence against children alone. We actually need to engage the private sector. We need to have, why not go to government and ask them if they could subsidize the prices on what is this, during COVID, sanitizers. So what about fire extinguishers for schools? If the members of parliament said that the schools will not pay the internet tax, what about the tax on extinguishers? What about government subsidizing the price on extinguishers for schools specifically? I mean, there are other avenues we can begin to have conversations. But if the issues are not brought by the people, It is not people driven. If the issues are not raised that this is the requirement, because for me, as a person who works as a development worker, the solution is in parliament. The solution is in the community. The community taking charge and being a protection, a gatekeeper. And when we talk about safe to learn and safe to, because learning is not only in school, everywhere,
All right.
even in the community.
All right. Well, as the parents wrongly, abdicate their duty and pass it on to teachers, these teachers, when we're saying train the children on what to do when there's a fire and what have you, are the teachers equipped to actually do that? Do they also know what to do when? Because I think, following this incident, yes, the teacher who was there with the children did get out safely, but was not able to get any child out.
Actually, if we did a random check, you might be shocked to find that out of 100, maybe only 3 are prepared.
Yeah.
Yes, out of 100, you might get shocked. And we will be able to go out for this kind of research so that we are informed well about the preparedness. Of the schools that we are talking about, how many teachers have certificates that show that trained on fires? And we bring them on table. We can go around. We don't need even 10 kilometers from where we are. Let's just move around 3 kilometers only. And we ask them to show. You might get shocked, only 3% prepared. So those are some of the issues. The teachers, because they are the children, the watchmen, because when the teachers go and sleep, the watchmen who are guarding the gates are supposed to be there.
They're not trained.
Are they trained? They're only on their guns. Nobody prepared for issues of fire. So where are the fire commanders? Where are the fire commanders? You may have a dog, but that dog doesn't know what to do when the fire breaks out. So are the dogs trained on issues of fire? They're in trouble. There is a big problem, a big gap. So for me, I would even think that now Parliament must deliberately ask that our ministries budget for issues of fires, particularly the Ministry of Education, should now readjust its structures to cater for officers who are directly in charge of issues of this safety, because it is now becoming something which is beyond the limits. When we make laws, we don't make laws out of the blue. We bring in a law because there's a problem. Now that the problem has signaled itself, maybe we must also go back and check the laws that we made. Are they still relevant? We must dig out and check. We might need to change something so that the law compels certain action. I think if we do that, then things will be able to link up. Okay. Otherwise, trouble. But the teachers are not ready, most of them. That one I can tell you. You can do your survey just for Kampala alone. You come back. I'm amazed. You can get amazed and you find that sorry. They are still not trained. They don't know what to do. Even in their own homes, ask them for the preparedness. You might get 0. And that is where we are.
All right. Gentlemen, we have to take a break. When we return from the break, I will get your recommendations on this particular issue as we look at another facet of the same issue, safety in schools, but from a different angle. Please stay tuned, because after this, the conversation continues.
Do you love me?
Very much.
I'll catch you one day. Pants down.
I want to spew. I want you to eat my money.
She believes I'm in love with her guy.
Nico? If I had to live everywhere I'm not loved, where would I end up?
The dirty guy hides at a hospital for 40 years, but at night, he walks the streets, commits crimes, and then he comes back and pretends to be her life again.
I will break you, Spooky.
Do not answer any question about roho kwa roho. Use your brain!
Now showing on CD. Don't blink.
Hits it in the air. Will that be set? He's done it. What a magnificent performance.
Recharge your day with Sting. Extreme energy, refreshing taste, available countrywide. Sting, life switched on, from the makers of Pepsi.
Welcome back from the break. Thank you for staying with us here on The Big Debate. I'm your host, Iguma Gabriel. We're live on Seetv with the Honorable Sargon. He is the Member of Parliament for Komi Municipality. He's a member of Parliament's Committee on Education and Sports. We also have Mr. Damon Wamara. He is the Executive Director of Uganda Child Rights NGO Network, UCRNN. Profile of the guests, you can go to YouTube, look for the show and go to the beginning, and you'll see that these two men are well read and well positioned. They have vast experience in the matters that we are discussing. But today we're particularly looking at safety in schools following an incident of a fire in a school in Mugo. It was a school for the blind. Unfortunately, 11 young people lost their lives in that fire. We had 17 people, 11 died and 6 were taken to hospital in critical condition. Continue to grieve with the families that lost their dear ones. We also pray that the 6 will heal and heal quickly. When we went for the break, we're just going to move to some recommendations, because this has actually come at a time when schools, were grappling with how to deal with COVID-19 and the restrictions around that, and the safety measures they have to put in place to deal with that and the related costs. And now with the Ebola, with Ebola in Uganda, more requirements are being made of the schools, and now this issue has come up. So if we could give our recommendations on how to deal with the fires moving forward, so that this is an issue that is prepared. It may not stop the fire, but at least we are better prepared on how to do them, and then we can switch to the other issues. If I may start with you, Mr. Wama.
I think for me, Gabriel, we have mentioned this right from the beginning. The first one is we have good legislation laws, but we're not implementing them. We're not implementing them. We're not taking them further from the top and to the grassroots. And for me, that is the key thing that we need to implement and actualize those good laws. Because, like I told you earlier on, we have the Education Act, we have the Education Policy, we have the National Health Policy, the Children's Act. Just a few of the quick ones that I can point out that we have in place. And there are also other guidelines on safety and the establishment of schools also, all those guidelines. And also, to that is also Parliament to allocate resources for this implementation of these laws. I just think that you must be feeling bad that you have passed laws, but they're not working. And because, so we need resources. And on top of that, after you have allocated, they also do a good job at allocating the resources. But the difference between, we did an analysis, we will continue to do an analysis of that. the difference between what was budgeted and what was actualized. My God, it's really, the English word has failed to come out. It's so sad. We need allocation of resources there. There is, as I said this, that as parents and people who are concerned, we afford to live of the safety of our children to only the school and parliament that sits in campaign. We as parents also need to take charge. We as leaders in the community need to engage on these different conversations with the schools, monitor the schools, have your strong PTA, Parents Teachers Association, discuss the issues and ensure that there's a monitoring and all that. When Honorable was talking about the who is inspecting and all that, every district is supposed to have a fire brigade. Now the question is, what time did the fire brigade arrive? That's another question altogether. But the ability to respond, the community members to monitor, the community to hold the government responsible, because it's not only just the schools, but also if there was a good fire brigade system in the place and it was able to get to them on time, would we have had a better response? Would it have been a different situation altogether? If the parents are able to hold the government accountable, hold parliament and say, look, this is lacking, ensure that it is here. I think as parents we have a very key role. The last is, please schools. I know you're looking at business, you're looking at profit making, but children are not materialistic. Children needed for the betterment of our country.
All right, thank you. Honorable?
First of all, the children who are in their sick beds, those who are nursing serious injuries, and some are in a critical condition, I think first of all, as a priority, let government take charge and make sure that the families who are having sick children are comfortable financially. Give them all the necessary support. They should not be asking even. Instead, should be looking out for them. Where are they? And give them the necessary support. Number two, help those families that have lost their 11 properly, adequately. Number three, would love to see that it digs out all the reports on fires in Uganda, not only in its schools, but also other buildings, including commercial buildings in the city and what have you. We must share the findings. But now we're asking the questions. What is it that has been done around these findings and recommendations? That is very, very pertinent. Other always starting things, put them aside, start again, put them aside. Now when there's this fire of the 11, we run there, we want to check what went wrong, we come, we pack that report aside, then again when there's another issue, let's wake up and have a debate. We must have a proper way, a well-established mechanism of managing fire issues in the country. Let's stop these ad hoc kind of measures which are based on happenings. When today there's a matter, you run out, you check, you cry out. No, it can't help. The issues of disaster. We, according to the Constitution, have a percentage which is supposed to be for contingency. Yeah. But I am worried about the activeness of that contingency fund. This year alone, as 2022-2023, I'm not sure how much we have. Where is that money? Can it be used on issues of fires? Go back and ask the question about the fire trucks. That in each district, we must do the count. Out of the over 130 districts that we have today, we have the municipalities, we have the cities. With this, you might get ashamed that only 10% have this equipment. But in Kampala also here, you find these trucks which are hiding in, I think, in Temeron, somewhere, Clock Tower. There is a fire around Mukono. That truck is supposed to move from there up to Mukono. Look at the jam in Kampala. Sometimes the jam really closes the road. You cannot even use the opposite side of the road. The whole road is packed with the cars. Where does this truck, this firefighting thing pass? So we still have a hell of issues to handle as a country. We have a lot, there is a lot. But besides that, I request that the media, as a corporate social responsibility, to create awareness as a quick measure. Because as we talk, government cannot really have a since like on this loop. Let us first ask media houses are with us. We kindly beg, put in, even if it's 5 minutes in a day, on the issues of fire, create awareness. We shall be sub here. Thank you.
Right. You know, the fire trucks,
yes.
There have been incidents where they get to the place and they need where to get the water from. Yes, Damon, there's something I wanted to ask before
I just wanted one more recommendation that I'd forgotten, but is very crucial. Schools and institutions and Ministry of Education, Honorable, if we can adopt safeguarding measures. Safeguarding measures will ensure thinking proactively about prevention. Yeah. The safeguarding measures, even looking, and because the measures look at the nitty-gritty detail, everything in place. Is the safety of this child in place? So about the adults, because you know the adults can be abused. Like we have talked about the ratio of a caregiver to a child. So we need to push. I don't know if we can legislate and have it, but we need to ensure that safeguarding for every institution.
All right, and that's usually topped up by having a person, a focal person, institution in charge of safeguarding. To ensure that your safeguarding, rules are followed, they're actually updated, and that people are aware of your intervention on safeguarding. Could shift gears a little and talk about Ebola, particularly in the context of schools. Schools didn't do too well at dealing with COVID-19. We're hiding. That's the term that was used. They knew what it would mean for them as schools, and that kind of exacerbated an already tricky situation. Now Ebola has come in. Schools are being asked to take certain measures. When the president addressed the nation the last time, he said, well, we've decided we're not going to lock schools down. People continue to attend schools. Of course, there are the unique needs of the learners in the districts that were locked. But first, generally, schools, and I will start with you, Honorable.
First of all, there is no difference. That is big, really, between the Ebola thing and what we are just trying to come out of the COVID. And I think by God's grace, because we come out of the COVID, we are somehow well prepared. To a certain extent, it's only sad to note that as we talk right now, lost people, including doctors. That is so sad. But I think we must accept, let Ministry of Health lead the campaign. People take advice seriously. I think the awareness levels about Ebola are not yet up to where we expected them to be. We need to create this awareness seriously. The management of learning institutions must learn that once you have one single case in your school, that is so bad because of the crap we have. So the best thing we must do is to keep our gates. I think for now we must even suspend visitors to school. We must for now. It may be painful, but that dose might be the one which will save us. Because first of all, we have the tourism sector, which is so sensitive. I'm already made aware that it is a country, I think it was Thailand, that has already put their country on alert, high alert, that you cannot admit people who are coming from Africa without a certain kind of thorough check. So that's already
For the US, Ugandan citizens can only go 4 particular airports. Yeah.
So when we are at a level, you know already our economy is ailing. If we allow this Ebola thing to explode, we are done. We are finished. I've seen a situation where workers, government staff, are taking over 3 months without getting what? Salary. That could be a bad point already. So if we don't take charge of what is happening and we just become relaxed, the situation will go out of our what? Hand. We do not want to scare our tourists. We do not want to scare the travelers. But the issue is, let us take everything seriously. Seriously. We must listen to the commanders and the Minister of Health. Listen to them. We will save ourselves.
All right. Honorable mentions that, the Ebola situation comes at a time where, we learned from COVID-19. But part of what we learned from COVID-19 is that schools became clever. They required you to have, facilities, and they were there as decorations, really. If you check, there was no water in them. They were not being used. And probably, yes, we learned, but not the correct. How do we ensure that these are not things that are, are carried on, so that these measures are actually in place and are used?
We're about to have the exams for UCE.
Right.
And one of the big questions that they ask you if you did History 3. Do you remember, did you study history?
Yes, learning nothing and forgetting nothing.
The Bourbon monarchy learned nothing and forgot nothing. And I think
we're learning about Napoleon Bonaparte. Then African history, we enjoy those things.
Since we're talking about this whole situation, I think for me, it's a catch-2020. We are on high alert, and unfortunately, coming out of COVID, now Ebola is coming. And this is a critical place where, again, like Honorable has said, we need to be alert and very smart. Personally, I am not for locking down. I am not for seizing the opportunity of people to be able to fend and provide for themselves. Like Honorable said, the economy is not going to favor that one. And at the end, people think that they are saving people from Ebola, but I think what happened? We got news that 14 million Ugandans are what? Mentally?
Yeah, mentally sick also, something like that.
Let's not forget that.
Yes, it's
that
serious
there was
issue.
after effects of COVID that were beyond the disease itself.
Beyond the disease, yes.
That came with the babies, children who are mothers. I was reading, I think one of the CSOs said that the youngest mother is 22 years old. With
That's the 23, the youngest grandmother.
Grandmother is 23 years old.
Grandmother, not
so
a mother.
if you start calculating the child, so the after effects of that need to be thought through thoroughly. And for me, it is sad that the kids and the children, not kids, the children have been found, and according to Ministry of Health, they have been isolated. For me, it goes back again to the safeguarding in place, because, like Honorable said, we cannot avoid the disease is there. But what are the safeguarding measures we ensure that if any has been affected or been exposed, are responding according to what has been guided by the Ministry of Health? The schools themselves, we're going to go back to the sections. He asked if anyone has been trained on fire safety. Has anyone been trained in the schools on what to do to respond to COVID-19? All I've had is them giving public. I don't think, I haven't seen any additional measures, even funding going directly to training of head teachers or setting up systems. If Kampala has already been, and this is easy because there are few districts that have been identified. It's not the whole country that they're saying you have to train now. It's Kampala, it is Mubende, Kasanda, right. Chegegwa, and Kagadi. Those are 5. Getting those teachers, training them on what to do, what safe measures they should have. Then they should go back, engage their boards. The boards make the decision. Unlike government making the decision, If the boards make the decision and the parent-teacher association goes back and says, parents, we're doing this for the safety of our children. And this is how we will do it. If you're to visit, send money through this account, they will always, because some of them now even stopped allowing grab anyway in the we have Zoom now. You can have an online visitation. I don't know, and I'm not suggesting all of this, but I think it is about the safeguarding measures that are put in place. These need to be evaluated. This still will apply even for such a situation.
Well, when measures are put in place, certain times those measures do expose weaknesses in, our planning and our implementation. Take the districts that were locked down initially, including Mubende and Sanda, where, people were not supposed to ride on motorcycles and things like that, get out of the district, what have you. And yet the school opened. And yet we know that there are people who will have to travel more than 4, 5, 10 kilometers to their school. Young people expected to trek that distance to school, from school, and that wasn't planned for. How do you ensure that even in our planning, it is, well thought through, it is holistic?
First of all, the planners must wear the shoes of those who are in the problem. Otherwise, we must accept to sit there and be in that mind that assuming that I'm the one there, what would I be expecting from government? From point of view, we can be wise men and we shall be able to know what we need to do to save our situations. And the problems of the places that have been under lockdown should be taken to be national. There are people now who think those are issues of cancer, those are issues of Mubende, those are issues of... If it were so, we would not be having World Health Organization. Yes, look at how COVID started from that Wuhan or something, from China, to affect the whole world. And the lockdown came up to my house. Do you know, for me, I was in the house faithfully for more than 10 days, the first lockdown. When I came out, because I got tired, I said, but today I want to come out and see what is happening. Only to find people are walking on the roads. He said, oh, we're dying in the house. Mental challenges. Because every time you are just there, glued on TV, looking at what is happening. So I think as you give support to the districts which are already affected, let's listen to them, and they should tell us what they feel, what they think we should help them with. Give them that attention. And we must focus our attention and give priority to those places. Otherwise, the gates will explode, because people don't accept to be in the lockdown when of hunger, for instance. They cannot access whatever they want to get in Kampala. They will find themselves here. So if we don't help those people and we don't take it as a priority, I can tell you, it will be difficult for us to manage once the situation comes this way. You cannot live around poor people and you think that you are the person. You are also counted the poor. So let us first help those people who are in a problem, then we shall be sorted. We must think like they are thinking now. Get their mind, plan according to what we feel they should be given.
All right.
Yes.
Part of what we learned from the previous situation of COVID-19, and I did raise this up and I didn't get any of your comment on it, was, hiding of cases. And, because of the related impact of disclosing that you have cases in your school. Is this something that, can be mitigated for, Ebola?
Again, I'm going to first dodge that question because I want to answer your first question that he had.
Yeah.
My answer for also the question that he brought, that Honorable was trying to address, one of the answers I have for that, the question you brought of 10 kilometers, it's very easy to deal with that. Implement the education policy.
And what does the policy say?
The policy says that every parish has to have every sub-county has to have a secondary school. Those reduce the distances already. It reduces. But right now, trekking of 10 to 2 meters is because the parish is far. It is only one parish that has a primary school. Even when you have a one in sub-county, I think it's also for the second school. But that reduces that issue. And how to do it? Please, Minister of Finance, please, Committee of Education, give Minister of Education money to implement that policy. Then we'll have schools closer to the community. Then avoided all of that. Even when Ebola breaks out in that school, it is then easy to manage it because it is in that community. The people are not moving. The Americans do it. Americans, you're not allowed to take your child out of your sub-county. Education, you take your child in that sub-county so they're able to close proximity from your home. Now going back to your question, what happened?
Actually, you get to pay less if you are in school.
Exactly, but I understand the situation of the whole idea of making sure that somebody from Mbarara goes to Mwiri and someone from Mwiri goes to Mbarara High, so that there's that exchange and to kill the whole tribalism and all that. I understand there is that, but then still we now need to get to this because I mean we are now intermarried everywhere. From all across the country.
Yeah, I know these are bigger issues in the education sector, and you know, if the standard of the education standard is
raised,
lifted, then people would find it easier to go to school that's nearby. But because of standard issues, you're looking at a school where your child will have a better chance, and you end up taking them quite far.
Yeah. But getting now to that, you asked me about the schools dodging and what should be done. If Ministry of Health already gave standard operating procedures, if Ministry of Education also then got those standard operating procedures and made them relevant to the secondary, to the schools, it is onus again on Ministry of Education to monitor the schools that they're implementing. It is onus for them to monitor and hold the schools accountable. If there is a school that is breaking the law, don't lock down all. Cause one school to pay. How? If that lockdown, let them be closed. Let them get a punishment. Let them have consequences to the actions that they have taken. Secondly, there is the UNATO. There are those associations that are there. There are those networks that are there. There is a private something association, the private schools association, something like that.
Yes.
My brother Patrick Kaboyo, he's the coordinator of it. They are there. Let them breathe part of the monitoring team, because the moment the private schools are together, they're going to monitor each other. Do you know what it said? It takes a thief to catch a thief. Get the school people to monitor themselves. Get a committee from the schools in that district to monitor. The DEO is, let her get a committee of the schools to be the monitoring school committee, and they monitor and hold each other as schools accountable. Again, we go back, we're moving away from the government bit, coming back to the community taking charge. And the community, for me, in development work on your community, there are different communities. I know I may say community and somebody's thinking of the village community. No. Even the schools become a community in their own entity. So as schools themselves, they will be able to hold each other accountable, even if it means having monthly meetings to discuss what has come up, which schools are there, what is the situation, what are the new trends. These are things that don't even need a lot of money. They just need you to have a space to meet, and that's it. The schools already have money for school fees. They can fuel themselves to come in training, and they hold themselves accountable. Set up a committee. For me, I think that will be one of the key things. Community, it's equivalent to community policing, but now you're saying school policy.
Honorable, as the ministry comes with ways of dealing with the spread of Ebola, today the Minister did give an update. The Minister of Health did give an update, and it was in that update he stated that some school-going children were found for Ebola, and particularly there was a candidate And the minister ended saying, you know, they're hopeful that by this weekend, the candidates' results, Ebola results will have turned negative, and they'll be able to, join to do their exams. Are these things that we take into consideration? And how do we ensure that, we do not add salt to injury? Because if, yes, students are getting infected and we're isolating them, it may reach a situation where some of them are missing their exams.
First of all, Uganda as a country is not new to the Ebola thing. And in Africa, if I'm not mistaken, we might be one of countries in handling some of the epidemics.
A number of countries have learned from Uganda's.
Yes, I've learned from Uganda. I know of a doctor who came from my constituency, who at one point led a team to Liberia to fight the Ebola up there. Because it was going out of hand there. It was Ugandans who managed to contain it. Dr. Atai Omoruto, may I also rest in peace, she passed on some time back. So Uganda has a lot of lessons, and they can go back to the archives. Our scientists can pick records. You remember very well that we lost Dr. Matthew Lukwea to Ebola. Yes. Those are very huge happenings. We can be able to. Doctor, who I think came from Kenya or Kenya.
Yes.
Yes. So Uganda has a lot of lessons that should be able to build into our response, so that we manage these issues with the calmness, without even shocking the economy. Because my worry is, if we do, then we are like we want to lock down the economy, but now just collapse. That will be deadly. So my opinion is that Minister of Health should get all their relevant tools, activate them now. But above it all, the level of awareness must be raised, and everybody must learn to take responsibility. And I want to agree with my brother. People must accept and take charge. This is trying to say that the government is responsible even for your own safety. I think it does not work. Let people accept. We all have the responsibility to be mindful about our safety. The parents as well have the responsibility within their communities to do something around this. We should not leave things to government. You see, the sickness now we have is that everything that we want to do, we say government. No. So everybody must have a part to play, and we must play our part. You'll be amazed to learn that you talked about the issue of schools. Children are walking for a distance of more than 10 kilometers searching for education. I was just checking with what Minister of Education was reporting here. In Uganda, we lack over 1,200 primary schools. It shows that those are the numbers with it. So you can imagine. So we have not done a study around Kansanda, Ubende, the places which have been locked up, to show the gaps in terms of what? This. Leave alone that. Searching for water. I do chair the parliamentary forum on WASH. But if you ask the question, how many of our people, the communities, walk within a radius of only less than 500 meters to access clean and safe water? You cannot do without water. It is a convergence point where there is a source of clean water, people will be forced to converge there. What is it that government is doing around this? There are so many issues. Then we have the spiritual
affairs. And especially
affairs.
now with, issues of Ebola, where, yes. You don't want many people congregating, but also water is needed for washing. Water is needed for washing.
Yes. So what is it that you are going to do? You cannot stop people. They are hungry, you can't cook with them. They have taken long without showering, they want to bathe, they need water. They are thirsty, they need to drink. Animals need to water. What are we going to do? So those are some of the questions. And spiritually, people want to go to church and pray. I can tell in our communities, in our I saw during this COVID, people who constituted the churches in their what? Homes. So they are going to pray in a tongue. So whereas the government locked down the churches, they did. They didn't. They also flexible. They adapt to certain operation. They started that they tell the reverends, you come, reverend, today it is in my home. They'll also prepare the breakfast. People converge again. So it is a big thing. But what I can tell you, Uganda is not new. Ebola is not new to Uganda. So we can go back and open a toolbox, look at which tool worked well last time, apply it again. I'm very sure it will work. It will work. But also government must be able to remember those people who have sacrificed theirs. Our people, the scientists, the doctor liners have the confidence, the morale to go to the field to fight. There are battles who are taking it just lightly like this. These are the people who are dying. They have seen their. There must be some sort of handclasp from the whole country standing to the doctors.
That's true.
When are we injecting some morale into them for the work they are doing? For us who are here enjoying, but those people are not. Those who are married, if you're a woman, you are working in the Mubende hospital, I'm worried. At the night, we want to return home that maybe it's rest. Your husband may not allow you to come back home because he says you are now an Ebola suspect. You can imagine the kind of life. How are we going to support such people? So if we are not going to concentrate on helping such people, the doctor's morale will also collapse. So we must inject some morale in them. When they need their allowance, give them in time. Take care of their families. Give them adequate transport. Don't disturb them on the roadblocks. There should be proper identification. Make their movement easy. And then we will be able to see the response and the way it will be efficient. It will be quick. We shall tame Ebola. And the whole world and Africa will respect us. Uganda has been helping, I think even the borders of DRC. There have been challenges there, but we are the ones who have battled these things. But also, those who are in the churches, the real people of God, I would ask, where are you? Uganda has gone through so many disasters, but I'm asking myself, why us? We had the lock, we have had the floods, we had the in the water levels, Victoria and the rest. Now COVID came, Ebola has come, helicopters in the Congo, many issues. So what is happening? So we need our prayer. Where are you? What appears? So we want them to pray to God so that these things are to stop. Scientists are tired now. They have worked and we are managing the scientists. So it is a real problem.
I like the way people keeps appealing to a higher power.
Yes, the higher power.
Great. You know, some of these issues cannot be separated. You know, you're talking about Ebola in schools, but it can't only be dealt with in schools. It has to be dealt with generally in order for the schools to be safe as well.
To be safe.
How do we mainstream this?
The truth is, and probably Honorable is right, because it's not our first time to have it. We are now in our own dialect, because it has come once, twice. Who is Ebola? We have gone through it, and I think it's a tough situation for the community to act and feel like Ebola is far away, and it's not close. The whole is still in preparation of the community. Gabriel, one of the things that we raised as a civil society, as we were talking about the COVID-19 and Ebola situation, is that, and Honorable has emphasized on it, the doctors. But this whole health is not just about the doctors alone. The health aspect, but we forget the social aspect in all of this. You understand what I'm talking about? There's treatment and there's everything, but then there is a social engagement, which you're asking, how does the community respond in protecting, in carrying out all that? And the doctors only know how to give you either bad news or good news, either that you're well or you're badly off. You know, they give you resources. That's what they know. But the social issue is about sitting and looking at the community, looking at what the community has in place, and then using what is within the community's ability to now carry out safeguarding measures. You understand? So the measures that you will give to Kampala cannot be the same to Kampala. They cannot be the same to Fort Portal City, to Kumi, to Masindi, where every place, and it's because you need to look at the situation in its community, in its social setting, and then add at that point. And for me, I think the key element of conversation that people need to be the social actors, the development workers, the social workers, the community workers, the DCD. During the lockdown, the CDOs and probation were not essential workers.
They were not essential workers.
But the doctors were. But when the problems came and the community, they said, where are you probation officers? We are not essential. We can't move. Not only not to move, we don't have cars to move. We don't have the provision. They need to be brought on not at the end when there are problems, but even at the beginning to deal with the whole social engagement, how the social, because at the end, the doctors will give the doctor's definition there, but it's actually the social workers who bring it down to the grass understanding. They're the ones who help the
everyday person.
The everyday person. They're the ones who bring the everyday person board to understand that this is what the doctor is saying. By saying wash your hands, he's saying you do 1, 2, 3. Teachers, those are all the key people that need to be brought on board. And social education needs to trickle down. Now, the ministry is going to tell you, but we're doing it on TV, we do Twitter, we do. That is for people of you and I who have access to these gadgets continuously and know how to use them for that purpose. But there are other people who do not use it for that purpose. And we need to engage all. That's why I'm saying that it varies. You're going to find that now in Kampala, the best way to do it is not even TV, it is radio. Because people listen to radio more. You understand? Then when you, actually, Kampala, it is TV.
Kampala, it's TV,
radio.
yes.
Then when you go up country, you're going to find it is radio more than TV. Then when you go to another place, it is the mega more than even the radio. So all those education systems, that is the best way to engage with them.
All right.
Protecting, guiding, and giving direction.
Gentlemen, we're out of time, so I will get a parting shot from both of you. I will start with you, Mr. Wamara.
My parting shot is that, Gabriel, we need safeguarding measures in our institutions and our schools. These measures will help us in the prevention of any form of violence. And you know, when we talk about violence, Ebola is violence against the child, because violating their right to a healthy life, to survival. And then also the fires are violating the rights of the child to life. Then the second is, and I'm going to continue crying, for me I'll continue crying and say, please government, ministry, allocate them. No, the allocation is done. Please release them.
Release money, yes.
Give Ministry of Education, give Ministry of Gender the money. The biggest population of this country needs the money. Allocate the money for more schools, more service delivery, for more provisions, and for the sake of the child.
Allocate and then go ahead and disburse. That interesting report that you're talking about that showed the difference between, our National Development Plan, the appropriation by Parliament, and the disbursement by the ministry. It makes for some good reading, and you won't believe it was actually done by Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasury. Yes.
I think really, first of all, picking it from you, Parliament has rise up to the occasion, and that the linkage between the NDP3, the budget, and actual releases is aligned. That linkage is very, very vital. Otherwise, the 10 years, the 20 years, the 30 years, talking of 2040, you know our planning frameworks, Vision 2040, we're talking about SDGs 30, the NDP 3, NRM manifesto as the government, will lose a point. So that linkage is very, very, very critical. And I think as Parliament, we are going to always start tracking and continue tracking for that linkage. It's very, very important. But my parting shots, one, on the issues of fire, we must take it serious to dig out the reports in the country, check what were the recommendations, and we want to, who didn't do their part. We want to see people play a role. If you did, some people must be for what they failed to do. I think that's very important. Two, we want to see Parliament will take that responsibility as Parliament to allocate more towards this. Because, yes, we can have the laws, the policies, the what, the implementation will be seated on the ground unless we allocate more resources. I think 2023, 2024 should be speaking towards this in terms of appropriation, increase budget. We want to see trucks, equipment be placed all over the country. We would love to see our institutions being prepared to conduct drills. I saw one time I was in Dubai. In the hotel where I was, I heard from nowhere an alarm went off. I said, what? They said, no, they are doing a fire drills. They are taking it serious. How many institutions do it? So we would love to see our hotels do that, the schools do that, the churches do, everybody do that. Let us take it the way the aviation people take it in the planes. If a plane takes off, everybody is reminded about the safety measures. And I tell you, there is something just near the paper which contains all the details advising you on all the safety measures. Just in case you have not understood us, they have put them in a sign language word so that you can understand. So even in terms of fire issues, that's the level we must be able to this. And then on the issues of Ebola, we must like Ebola is all over the country. If we are to quit, let's not take it for granted. We are not going to panic. We must remain calm, but let's give the Ministry of Health all the necessary support. And like my brother did, the community development officers play a big role. We want to support them, give them all the necessary facilitation to reach out to the public so that things to work. But also, let us power us to Mubende, to Kansanda, to the districts which have been in it. Yes, those. Give them, it is a priority right now. Because if we don't, that problem will haunt us terribly. We are talking of allocating resources. We shall not have anything to allocate. If Ebola breaks out, catches up with the whole, the tourists will stop coming. URA will not collect money. Economy will just collapse, and that will be the worst. So Ebola is a real priority. It is not these other wars. What the issue of Karamoja cattle rates have gone down. Ebola is the real what priority. We can suspend anything else, but not the fight against Ebola.
All right. We have to leave it there because of time. Honorable Silas Agon, Municipality Member of Parliament, also a member of Parliament's Committee on Education, and Mr. Damon Wamara, Executive Director, UCRNN, Uganda Child Rights NGO Network. Would like to thank you for joining us for the big debate tonight.
Thank you.
Dear viewer, sure that you're with us when we have another edition of the big debate. From me and our guests, it's a good night. God bless you. Stay tuned to the quality programming here on Seetv. Till next time.